Uh, Hello, my name is Ebis, and
My name is Akan.
Akan. So we just want to look at the current issues in terms of the Naira limit. The limits in terms of spending. Because the other day on Facebook, I saw one of your posts where you talked about, it's going to be difficult that this policy they may not have consulted everyone properly before, coming up with it. So could you just explain what you meant when you posted what you posted?
Okay, now for me, I understand that yes, the steps being taken by the current government are, supposed to be in the best interest of the greater majority of Nigerians.
Yeah.
Which of course we believe is what is going on. However, the way the current government is going about these steps is not in the best interest. It really does not seem in the best interest for some Nigerians, and the fact remains that the people that would feel the impact of this new policy are those that really were not involved in the process that led us to where we are currently. Now the CBN, effective from 1st of January 2016, will not issue a directive. I call it a directive to money deposit banks, commercial banks in Nigeria, saying that they should stop their customers from using their MasterCard, debit cards or credit cards abroad, outside the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, it also means that people like you and I cannot purchase anything, whether it's on eBay, whether it's on Amazon.
From Nigeria?
Yes, for as long as you have a Naira MasterCard, you cannot purchase anything that requires foreign currency.
Okay, what if there's a different card for that?
Currently, there is no different card for that.
Oh, okay.
So the fact remains that this policy, I would choose to call it a decree because it looks very much like a decree. People were not consulted. There's a finance committee in the Senate. There's probably a committee that oversees the activities of the Central Bank of Nigeria, but nobody was consulted. You just wake up and then you bring up a policy that is affecting a whole lot of Nigerians. Now, we're here in the United Kingdom. I served as a provost of the Association of Nigerian Students. Currently, I'm serving in another capacity, in Coventry University Students' Union, a much higher capacity. Now, upon my arrival, I realized that upon my arrival, I realized that it's very hard for Nigerian students to settle in.
Okay.
And one thing that makes it very hard is the fact that they don't have places to stay. So as much as possible, within the first or second week, they try to get a place to stay. And you can only do that when you have access to funds. Before you open a bank account here in the United Kingdom, you need to you need to be a resident of the city. You need to bring proof that you're paying bills in that house and some form of tax. Some form of tax. Exactly. There's your fluid, you're in the system.
So you need you need some cash.
Exactly, you need some cash at hand.
Yeah, the Naira stuff comes in handy
But if from the 1st of January, and of course in January we're going to have new intakes from Nigeria, because Coventry University has a high number of Nigerian students studying here. Now, if from the 1st of January these people, upon arrival, have no access to funds whatsoever, because even if they open foreign accounts here, you cannot make domiciliary transfers from Nigeria to the United Kingdom. So what this means is that once you leave Nigeria, you're on your own, even if you have the funds. And it is going to have an effect on the Nigerians that will leave the shores of the country to come to the UK or other parts of the world to seek a better education.
If we look at it from a broader perspective, do you think, or don't you think, the government might be trying to set a new course, which in due time would limit the number of students they send abroad to study? That is, trying to be more lean in terms of the spending, maybe exploring other alternatives of like fixing the Nigerian universities, because from the new budget, up to 400 and something billion naira has been budgeted for education.
Okay.
And there's a promise that they're going to employ 500,000 graduate lecturers. So young Nigerians who have graduated, 500,000 of them would be taken in for lecturing roles. You know, I mean, that's money that they might have been sending abroad.
Okay.
What if this is a first step in a process to curtail the, you know,
just like you said,
Yeah.
the first step in a process.
yeah,
It is a process, it is not an event.
mm-hmm.
This policy certainly is not a process. It did not go through a process. It's
Yeah.
just some cataclysmic event that's just happening.
You wanted it to take a bit longer time.
Yes, it should have taken a longer
Won't,
time.
won't people be impatient with the government?
No.
If-
Just like when the FRC set a deadline for drivers to get the new license,
Yeah.
which is the new biometric license. They should have given a sufficient window frame. Now in the EU, the EU nations here, whenever a new policy comes up, whether it's on waste management, whether it's on recycling, there is at least a 2-year window, because you need technology to set up the process for the new system. You know, so there is that time for you to, as it were, prepare yourself. But in Nigeria, there's no time. One, you mentioned something about the budget being 400 and something billion, which is good. Even if you pump money,
Yeah.
a lot of money, into a system that does not work, it still will not work.
Yeah.
I had my undergraduate degree in the University of Benin. I did an industrial training program,
Placement.
industrial placement. Now, there's something called the ITF, Industrial Training Fund.
Okay.
Yeah, things the ITF. Now, what they do is students that are studying in federal universities or other federal institutions that go on industrial placements are funded.
Okay.
Because sometimes you might go for an IT program and then the place where you're posted to refuses to pay you, but they give you the experience that you need.
Yeah.
Now, so a couple of years ago, I did my IT. Now, this is 2015. The money that the federal government approved, I'm yet to receive it. After having even after I completed my IT program. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's not about the money that you pump into the system.
Yeah.
It's about, first of all, making the system work. So if you create a system whereby there is deliberation, there is consultation, or as you said, you also said that probably the government, because of the paucity of funds, wants to cut down on its budget, cut down on expenditure, and we realize that the government sponsors a lot of students that come abroad.
Yeah.
Good, we understand that. But there are thousands of other Nigerians who are not sponsored by the government, who will still come to the UK or come to other nations across Europe, whether it's Canada, or whether it's Germany or Norway, or whether it's some of them might end up going to the US or Canada. They will still leave the shores of the country in search of good education, and they're not sponsored by the government. So these people need to be considered. There should have been a process to say, okay, if you're a student, okay, you can be exempted from this policy. Fine. But if you implement it across board, it will create a whole lot of problems. A whole lot of problems.
So you mentioned some other people could be excluded from such directive, which I think is reasonable, and for now we're not 100% certain. Have you seen the whole content of this directive you're talking about?
Yes, I have.
And it says from 1st January.
Effective 1st January 2016.
The Naira card accounts.
Naira card, you cannot use your MasterCard to purchase anything on any foreign website or platform. 2, you cannot use it outside the shores of the country
Nigeria
to make dollar or pound or any kind of foreign currency withdrawals. And right now, the Naira is not, the value of the Naira is very low. I think probably it's about maybe 270 or so to a dollar. 270 Naira to a dollar. Now, if you stop Nigerians, majority of Nigerians, from having access to hardcore foreign currency, a lot of Nigerians are doing businesses in China. How will those businesses survive? A lot of industries are going to run down. Now, do we have what it takes to industrialize Nigeria? Before any country becomes industrialized, they need steel. Steel is very, very important.
And but we have steel.
The Ajaokuta steel plant, good. We have the iron ore, but we do not have, but the factory is not working up to capacity.
Yeah, you know what I think some of all these things we are facing now is we as Nigerians, I think we've allowed some parts of our brains to stop working. The survival instinct, when one door is closed, we will find a way of making stuff work.
Yeah.
So to me, I think in the long run, if you ask me, I think this is a good initiative. Why? I know it's going to affect people, with businesses that involves importing things from outside. How about we stop all these importations, this consumerism? Because what stops you from struggling to make it work in Nigeria? I'm not saying it's so easy, but instead of the business model, the Nigerian business model, go abroad, see what you like, buy it, bring it to Nigeria, sell it, make a profit, and repeat this cycle. Containers coming in, dumping stuffs in Nigeria. So there's a trade imbalance. I once saw the president of Kenya talk about the country's trade with Uganda. He said he'd prefer to do business with Uganda, than to trade with some other country from far abroad. He said because Uganda, they get a lot of things from Kenya, sugar and many things, but Kenya, they're not getting so much from Uganda. They're not patronizing Uganda enough.
Okay.
So he said there should be some reasonable balance in all these things. So for a long time in Nigeria, the balance is not there.
Yes.
And I think it's time we start looking into that, and start building our industries one way or the other.
I agree. I agree that the balance is not there. We all know that the balance is not there. Certainly, Nigeria is a consumer nation. We rarely produce anything. Now, let's take for example the United Kingdom. Now, the United Kingdom is pretty sufficient in its own, whether it's in terms of food sufficiency, whether in terms of industrialization. Why? And this is because there are policies and programs that have been put in place to ensure that this system works. Now, you cannot just wake up and say and force every Nigerian against their own will to start using the Naira. I understand that the policy, yes, is in the best interest of the majority of Nigerians and the Nigerian economy. But you cannot put in place such a thing without having created
the alternative.
A conducive environment. For example, if you say, okay, we shouldn't purchase, we should think of things that we need to do. Good. Let me start with cars. In Nigeria, you find out that majority of car users would either buy a Toyota or a Honda car. Good. Now, if the importers of these cars find it hard to now import them, in the long run, it is going to have an effect on transportation. What Nigeria does not produce any form of cars.
No, they assemble a couple of them.
Yeah, they assemble a couple of them, but what's the cost of assembly? Now, some indigenous company produced a first SUV in Nigeria, and it sold for 20 million naira.
And that's not even affordable.
How many Nigerians can afford 20 million naira? One, why would you make your first car an SUV? Why don't you make it something that majority of Nigerians can get?
Exactly.
So those are the things that you need to put in place. You don't just wake up and strangulate the whole entire.
Well, you know why the car must have cost them 20 million? If I'm a businessman, if you're a businessman, you think, it's quite too expensive. Let's go in for more research to see how we can make it cheaper. I mean, what I'm trying to say is we need to encourage ourselves to think and re-evaluate how to make things cheaper. For instance, anything you want to do in Nigeria, you should just, there's always a way to do it. We're very indigenous, we're smart people. I once told someone that I think Nigerians are very smart, but the problem is when a bunch of them come together, there's the challenge for leadership and management, whereas it's but we're very smart people, and I think, to me, the way I see it, I feel the government is on a right path towards helping us start to think the way we should, because I'm even tired of hearing people saying we are begging America to come help us do this, China to come help us do this. going there to do. I know there are certain things we don't know how it works, but the what do they call it? Silicon.
Yeah.
The silicon industry and all them semiconductors, everything. Silicon is sand. It's sand gotten from the silicon oxide or whatever. What I'm trying to say is, to some of us Africans or some of us who don't know the technology behind certain things, it's all voodoo, it's all magic.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be the case in 2015, 2016. Okay, so the Nigerian government over time has been sending lots of students abroad to study, but we're not utilizing them to solve our problems. Those are the kind of things I'm saying. I think this is right, because just imagine if all the border is closed, nothing goes in from outside. What do you think happens to everyone? Once we start thinking in a new way?
We will, but until we get to that level, you must first of all ask yourself, are we ready for that yet? Now, I'm studying environmental management.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that the United Kingdom, when it comes to food security, it is a priority for them. Now, in Nigeria, you find out that there are no storage facilities. A lot of our produce, so if you drive by, I drive a lot in Lagos, so when you drive by, you see people that sell maybe fruits by the roadside.
Yeah.
Now, it is highly dependent on how long the fruits will last.
Definitely.
Now, but in the UK, you have processing industries. You can walk into a shop where they sell chicken and chips, and you can buy meatballs. What's meatballs? Meat that has just been mined, cooked somehow. You can walk to Sainsbury's and you can buy fresh vegetables that have an expiry date.
Yeah.
So until we begin to have such industries that will process, and preserve food, for example, you find out that we're not going to be self-sufficient when it comes to food security, and there is always going to be waste. And these things take time. It's not something that will happen, suddenly. It takes time. It takes years to create a conducive environment for such things, for such businesses to thrive.
Yeah, perfect. You understand, but both of us still agree it has to start either way. It has to start either way, because the food processing stuff, that's something I even think, because I see no reason why we should be importing food to Nigeria, because we have the market. We have people ready for it.
We do.
So I'm not saying we should stop bringing things from outside of Nigeria, but I think the only things that should be encouraged to come in should be things that will help in production. As opposed to people importing finished goods.
Yes.
So that get those raw materials. Let's assume, because the supply chain, you may not be all sufficient. You need other people in your supply chain, so you can get all those things from wherever you want them in the world. But put them together in Nigeria so that we can create employment for our people.
Yes, which of course is a very good step. But if you bring about such a policy like this, and then with Nigeria's trade balance, or you check the balance sheet, you find out that we import a lot of things. Even crude oil is imported. Our the 6 refineries in the country, they are not working up to capacity. Now, how are you going to balance your trade, seeing that your refining capacity is not even good enough? We still have to export crude oil
and then import it.
So those are the but it takes a while, whether it's turnaround maintenance you do carrying out in the refineries, or whether you want to build a new refinery, which would take probably between 2 to 4 years, depending on production capacity. So these things will take a while, and I would have preferred if this was done selectively, not just once, not just half.
Anyways, let's see what happens in January 1st.
Well, come January 1st.
But I still feel some people might be excluded from that. There's a reason why the central bank is giving such directives. Sometimes it's for a while, then they will open it up later on, because they're trying to see how they could curtail. Okay, they're trying to see how they could curtail waste.
Yeah.
You know, how all those loopholes people. That's partly what the last administration did.
Yeah.
You know, trying to digitize everything.
Yeah.
You know, transfers should be done. You know, and so we know who to tackle. Anyways, so I think, for instance, the Abu Dhabi people, what do you call them? They all come to UK to do investments because the system works. You know, they know if someone dupes me, if I pay you and you don't do the job, you know, I could take it to a court and I'll win the case. And I think hopefully when we begin to, you know, grow in our judiciary, then investors can come in knowing that business actually can work.
Yes,
you know, standards as well, world standards.
There's really a lot that needs to be done. You know, we can't just wake up to this. Now, you mentioned the United Kingdom. Now, regulatory agencies.
We have them already.
Yes, they have played a very, very key role in ensuring that the system works effectively. We can see the type of policies that our legislators come up with, and this is reflected in the type of policies that the National Assembly comes up with. There really is no policy. Say for example now, gas flare. Now the Nigerian government has set different targets to end, different targets to end gas flare. There's one in 2008, there's one a couple of years back. You know, but all these efforts have been in vain. Now the amount of gas that is flared, if that gas is captured and channeled and used effectively, it can supply gas, it can supply electricity to the entire Nigerian nation
about electricity generation, you know, one of our major problems is not to generate, is to distribute, because we don't have the sufficient capacity, infrastructure to actually distribute. You know.
Now, what the steps that the previous government started, of course, is yielding very good results. Now, a nation such as Nigeria, which practices the federal system of government, there are lots of things that the federal government controls, which is not supposed to. One of them, I believe, is electricity. What the government did was to unbundle PHCN, power holding companies,
different companies.
Exactly, different states. So instead of building one massive, transmission generation system, that probably could come under attack, and then everything shuts down. You break it up. Each state have your own transmission and distribution system. Give states licenses, probably whether it's to import and use gas turbines, to generate electricity. And that's to really create a good working environment. So it should have been done selectively. You start with electricity and say, okay, fine, give them increase the number of discos, distribution companies. So a lot of Nigerians will have access to electricity. Then on the other hand, you say, okay, we're going to enforce the utilization, new tariffs, and then utilization of electronic meters. One major problem is that discos, distribution companies, have resisted the move by the National Electricity Regulatory Commission to enforce the use of electronic meters. So these are things that you need to look at. It's a system. We need to overhaul the system. So you can make certain key areas of priority: power generation, refinery. Fix up the refineries, road transportation, and that's it.
Yeah, but definitely nobody's going to do this for us. You and myself, all of us. So, for instance, I just feel Nigeria as a whole, we're not really practicing the whole representation properly the way it should be, because up to today, no constituency in Nigeria has ever recalled back any senator for non-performance. So when we say the Senate, they are not making any policies, people-related policy, the people should be asked, what did you do about that? I mean, I can't blame my senator if I'm not saying it's so easy to speak to air your views to the senator. I'm also not saying it's so easy to recall them, but I think we're not playing our parts collectively yet, as we should. If there's something we've learned here, is there's always someone responsible for something.
You can always trace a problem to someone.
Yeah,
Well, you can always trace
maybe we're not there yet in Nigeria.
Certainly we're not.
Because
certainly we're not.
The Senate, let's say they sat for maybe 2. How many sessions do they have? Since they came, because it's laughable.
When they came in, they immediately, shortly after, they went on recess.
Yeah,
it's quite sad.
Yeah, but I don't still blame them yet, because I feel the whole mechanism of a people and their government, we have not, lived up to the role we have to play. If you go to the Parliament building in the UK, every now and then you'd see activists, people always trying to force their voice to be heard. They're always there, we just stay behind our computers and just give our opinions.
It's quite unfortunate, but I believe that in the coming years, a lot of Nigerians, the political consciousness of a lot of Nigerians is going to be awakened.
I believe so too.
There is going to be a whole lot, that Nigerians would look up to the government for and ask the government to do, because they would want to get involved in government.
Yeah, and then I would hope that there will be a lot more that the government would ask the people to do as well.
I really do.
Because some people keep saying this is not the change we voted for.
Yeah.
You don't vote for change. You should be ready for the change. I want change, but I don't want to change anything. You get what I'm trying to say? I just feel if this country is going to move forward, if Nigeria would become better, some of us need to rise up. Not to go into politics per se, but to start using technology the way it should be used, to start making things happen one way or the other.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the idea is just to clear the air so people don't get too scared.
Yeah. I believe that in the years ahead, definitely Nigeria will be better. But however soon it will happen, I really cannot say. I really cannot say. But I'm sure that young people like you and I, having lived and received education in a system like this that works, going back, of course, it will find it very sickening. Okay, now the policy will come into effect 1st of January 2016.
Although I hope there will be
some form of concession.
Exclusions,
But if that is the case, then I believe that Nigerians, I'll speak for the United Kingdom here. I've seen thousands of Nigerians here. Or rather, I'm aware that there are thousands of Nigerians here. A whole lot. A lot of Nigerians will have challenges academically, because it will be hard for them to concentrate and go by their day-to-day lives. But let's see what happens. Probably we hope that they will be excluded from this policy, but until then, we'll wait and watch.
Alright, thanks for sticking with us all through. It's been MrEbis and the chairman himself, Akan.
This is the worst.
We just airing our views and trying to explain certain things the best way we can and hope for the best. Hopefully Nigeria gets better, but it starts with you yourself helping the government and the government helping you in return. What's that quote they say? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So thanks, and until next time, God bless.